The show is called In Honor Of. It's a show for veterans families, and for the general public. And today we have a special guest with us, Mr. Ashton Stewart. Ashton, would you introduce yourself and give us a little information about your background and your service to the country?
Certainly. Thank you so much, Paul. It's an honor to be here on the program today. I was here the last time in 2019 when Ed Salick was here, who started the program, and I didn't learn about his passing until today, so I'm very sorry that he has passed away, and just want to put my thoughts out there and my appreciation for him starting this important show. I served in the U.S. Navy, the first Gulf War, and I'm proud of my service. I'm from a long line of service members, but in the British Royal Air Force, I was the first to serve in the U.S., so I'm very proud of that.
Well, I won't tell you then that my grandfather, 8th removed, fought against you folks in the Revolution.
That's okay.
At Lexington and Concord, believe it or not. So,
wow, yes.
But that's a history that I have in my family going back, obviously, 8 generations. So,
wow.
In any case, tell us a little bit about the organization that you're representing now and what particularly is there for veterans.
Well, thank you so much for that opportunity. I'm working for MJHS Health System as the Veteran Liaison, and MJHS started in the early 1900s and was founded by 4 women in Brooklyn when they saw a need for aging people who were dying alone. Yep. And since then it's grown into the MJHS Health System, and it is one of the largest not-for-profit health systems in the region, covering New York City and Nassau County. Okay. And one of the things that's really important to our program is making sure everybody, including myself, is veteran-centric. We have a veteran-centric culture to make sure that we are able to provide the most beneficial support for veterans and their families who are in our hospice program.
Yes. And this is a very important item because, in general, our veteran population is aging, and at some time, all of us are going to need some type of assistance. Hopefully, it's not directly into hospice, but some type of assistance in being taken care of. So, very important subject. Talk about a little of the Vet-to-Vet Café series.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Vet-to-Vet Café is a series that began to get the community of veterans together to talk about their service, and we're talking about veterans from all of the different conflicts and campaigns, different ages, just to share some of their stories and have a little camaraderie. But since it started, it has evolved into an education opportunity. And we are offering the Vet-to-Vet Café through MJHS Health System as a virtual program for the last couple of years. And we provide information that's relevant to veterans and their families who are facing end-of-life care concerns. And we've been able to provide a lot of valuable insight and access to resources as a result of the Vet-to-Vet Café.
Can you give an example of some of those types of assistance?
Sure. One takeaway that was from a program earlier this year was about medical nexus letters. This is something that there is not enough awareness out in the veteran community about, and medical nexus letters can be written by your doctor or your nurse practitioner or any healthcare professional that's involved in your care. And what it does is it shows from a medical perspective that your condition that you're trying to get a benefit claim through the VBA with, is that condition is, quote unquote, as at least likely as it is not related to your service. And when we did this program, we polled the audience. We had well over 100 people attend this virtual program. There was 83% who were polled that said they had no awareness about medical nexus letters. And that seems to represent an accurate number from my experience with speaking to people about it. And we also were able to expose a myth and debunk it from medical providers who are concerned about liability issues. There's never been a time when the VA has refuted a claim, a medical nexus letter from a provider saying, oh no, this couldn't possibly be the case, because it is the case. And oftentimes that, even if it's not a presumptive condition, as long as you can show that that condition is related to the service, there's a really good possibility that that outcome of the claim will be accepted. And just to take it one step further, one of our attendees shared a personal story. She said that she had put in a claim for disability, was rejected. She appealed it 3 times, and then the 4th time she communicated with her doctor and got the medical nexus letter, and she's 100% service connected as a result.
Yes.
Another takeaway, we did a program on state-run veteran nursing homes, and we had Fred Skanga from the State Veterans Home at Stony Brook University. We also did a coast-to-coast program this time, and we had people from CalVet and somebody from Yountville, just to give a wide perspective of what services are available at veteran homes in this different states. It varies greatly, and one person reached out to us who works at a state home in New York saying that they don't have a hospice policy, they only have a comfort care policy. And so somebody else who was on the program was representing a state elected official, and they are helping to put together some sort of solution to ensure that all veteran homes in New York State have some sort of a hospice policy, because it's important. Once you get to that point in your life where a curative treatment is no longer available, you have to know what the next steps will be. And finally, I think I'll leave it there. I could go on a lot about the takeaways, but the bottom line is that these programs, because they're virtual, we can get a national audience, we can get perspective from a number of people, and it's really been helpful to provide more information to veterans and their families.
And I know a little bit about this, so hopefully I'm not being too dangerous here, but I've had a lot of veterans come to me and say, I got hurt, this happened while I was on active duty, I was in such and such a place in the world, but it was never in my medical files, or I've lost my medical files, don't have them, so I can't get that correlation between the service and the condition. So this is one potential way to get that. I know that some of them were trying to find who they served with back in 1953. I mean, the chances of you finding somebody that you served with who's going to remember that incident are very, very small. So this is another way that you can get that service connection to your disability, I believe. Is that correct?
It is correct. If you can get a lay statement, if you are able to find somebody that you served with that can corroborate the situation that you're trying to get the claim through for, that is very helpful. One of the most important pieces of information for veterans, as we all know, is a DD-214. And one of the first things that we ask families that are part of our program is, do you have a copy of your loved one's DD-214? And if they do not, we are able to expedite the request to the National Personnel Records Center by submitting a letter with our letterhead, of course, stating that the patient's terminal, we need to expedite this request. We can usually get it within 5 days. And 9 times out of 10, the information that is contained in that DD-214 will be sufficient to show where they served. The medals and commendations that they received will show what campaign they were in. And you can also request a full copy of medical and personnel files. But one thing to be aware of, this is, you don't have a lot of time in our hospice reality. But for folks that are trying to put a claim in that have a little bit more time on their hands, they could certainly ask for a full copy of every single page of the medical record and personnel record when they go through NP, National Personnel Records Center. It's the only way to get a complete file of your history in the military.
That's if, again, that's if that incident was actually recorded in the original medical history. I've heard cases where it's not, and then it becomes even more of a grab bag of trying to find out how to get any information about it. But I do appreciate the information on the 214, and I would tell any veteran out here who's watching the show, if you do not have a copy and your family does not know where that copy is, please get a copy from the National Records Center. There is no way for you to get final honors without having a copy of your 214. Normally this is given to a funeral home, and that is how the military knows that you're passing and knows that you want honors at at your wake or at your cemetery. So very, very important item. One of the reasons I know this is I belong to an American Legion post here on Staten Island. Every year we get panic calls from the relatives. My loved one has passed and I want them to have final honors, but I can't find the discharge. And there just is no way in that short period of time that you're going to get a copy from the National Record Center. Fortunately, we keep copies of our members' discharges, if they give them to us, in our safe. And at least 3 times in the past 2 years, we've been able to pull out the copy and get that final award for that veteran and their family.
That's awesome, Paul. This is another benefit that you're speaking of that a lot of families aren't aware of until it's needed. And
yes,
in our opinion, that's a little too late. We're always trying to work with families and put the information out there that, end-of-life concerns are not something that's pleasant, but we're all going to face it, and trying to get prepared and do your advanced directives, having your DD-214 is so important. But we've also found that for some families that are without the DD-214, a simple call to the National Cemetery Association, sometimes they can locate it if your loved one has already passed, and they can share it directly to the funeral home and put in place the military honors, which is a program that's available for any honorably discharged veteran. And we
they do a really nice job.
They really do. We helped a family put it together for a burial in Puerto Rico recently as well. So it's something that is pretty simple to put in place. And also, you can, if you're honorably discharged, you also have the, if you want, you can be buried in a national cemetery.
Yes.
Or now there's a state cemetery in Romulus County, upstate.
Yes.
That's a little trickier for those who live further away. In New York, you have to pay for the transport.
The closest cemetery here is still at the end of Long Island. So
yes, it is.
It's
Suffolk
at least
County.
2 hours from us here on Staten Island.
That's true. That's true. And comparably, it's comparable, let's say, to make that decision.
Yeah, it's a difficult decision for some of our veterans. We have one of our members whose father is buried out there, and it's a difficult commute. I mean, just to go and visit his parent.
It really is.
So,
we also helped get a spouse buried at the National Cemetery at Calverton because she told her social worker at MJHS, I'm going to be buried with my husband. And she didn't have any family, and so the social worker was really puzzled. She's like, well, how are you going to do it? And then she died. She had no family, no will, nothing. But we found there's a really great benefit in New York called the Indigent Burial Program through the New York State Department of Veteran Services. They paid for her to be relocated, her remains to be relocated and be buried with her husband, who she lost in 1979.
Wow.
He was a Korean veteran, and she waited all that time. She had no will, but she got her dying wish, and it was just such an honor to help make that happen. And we've used that same benefit for more than one veteran. That, just to give them, they may be having hard times, but they still get an honorable burial at the end, and that's so important rather than going to Potter's Field or somewhere else that's less pleasant.
Yep. I think one of the key takeaways here is that these end-of-life decisions, you really need to plan.
Yes.
And I think that's where you're coming from. And a part of that is the discharge.
Yeah.
Another part of it is, what do you really want to have happen to you? Do you want to be buried in the National Cemetery? Do you want to be buried in a local cemetery?
Yeah.
Do you want your spouse with you? All of these decisions you need to make beforehand, because once you're gone, that's a stressful time for the remainder of the family.
Yeah. And it can be really stressful on the family, too, to try to figure out
what do they want.
Yeah. Because sometimes when you're at the end of life, you lose the ability to speak.
Sure.
One of the last senses to go is hearing, so they can still hear you, but when they lose the ability to speak and you're not certain what they want, it's really challenging. We're doing a program on the Vet-to-Vet Café on the 1st of November, and we're honored to have New York State Department of Veteran Services Commissioner Viviana DeCone
Okay.
joining us, and she is one of the most compassionate veterans I've ever met, a former Marine, and she's got
There is no such thing as a former Marine.
That's true. Thank you for the correction. Yes.
I have been
Appreciate that.
corrected multiple times on that one. Yeah, that
So
once a
true.
Marine, you are always a Marine. It just does not go away.
That's so true. But she's going to be speaking about some of the unpleasant realities of caregiving. We've got a couple of other guests too. Jonathan Fishbein, who's General Counsel at the
Okay,
State
I know
Division.
Jonathan,
Yeah,
yes.
and finally we have Dr. Leslie Branch, who's one of the new members there, who's going to sort of tie in the loose ends and share what the call to action is for caregivers who have a very high death rate. Sometimes they die before the person they're caring for
Yep.
because they try so hard and they don't take care of themselves.
Yep.
So that's another thing that is really important in our work, is to share resources that support caregivers, talk about how you can have coping strategies, and this is going to be on November 1st, and we can invite everybody to participate, whether they can join live on the 1st or not. We record these programs and we share them on the MJHS YouTube channel at MJHS01. So I will be happy to share that information later, and they can also email me. I know that Mike's gonna and Rosemary's gonna share my
Why don't you
email
give us the
address.
email anyway?
Sure. Okay. It's ashstua@mjhs.org, and that's the first 3 letters of my first name, ASH, and the first 5 letters of my last name, STEWA, at mjhs.org. And my phone number at work is 917-588-4398. And I'd be happy to add anyone to our listserv to
Sure.
send out the announcements. We do these programs quarterly, and so far they've always been virtual. And we were just really appreciative for the opportunity to share this information. with
virtual
an
on
audience.
Zoom?
It is on Zoom.
Okay.
Yep.
Because most of the folks are familiar with Zoom. That seems to be the most popular one that they've been using. How do people sign up for them, though? For these Vet-to-Vets?
They can definitely sign up through me by reaching out. We also have been fortunate, a lot of our partners who are in the veteran space share our notifications
Sure.
with their listserv. They can also visit our social media channels. MJHS is on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. Did I say Instagram twice?
Yes.
Okay. But they can definitely reach out to us through my email contact or give me a call.
Sure.
I'll make sure they get that information.
Okay. I think you mentioned this already, but give us a little bit of, if they missed a particular show, for example, if somebody was traveling, like I intend to do this next week.
Okay, definitely. Well, that's the beauty of YouTube. You can watch it at any time. And all of this programming that we do to make sure we have a veteran-centric culture is through the We Honor Veterans program. And MJHS has been part of this group since this national initiative since its inception. So it's been several years. We earned our level 5 provider status several years ago. And this year, we're really proud to have won the 2023 Outstanding Programming Award.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's nice to take a moment just to see that our work and support for veterans and families is having some success, because it is hard work and it's important work. But We Honor Veterans is an initiative that started through the VA to work with community healthcare providers to make sure that we're working together with the VA. One of the first things that we do with veterans is ask if the veteran's enrolled, because if they are or not, we can assist, but the VA is able to put in 16 hours of home health aid hours per week, which can be such a game changer for families. And when we are able to put that in place for a family, we always encourage the caregiver, please take a walk. When that person comes in to assist, get out of the house.
Yes.
Take care of some errands, take care of yourself, because it's crucial to continuing on as a caregiver.
Yep. I've had this experience. My mother was in hospice care for the last 3 months of her life.
Wow.
And it was very, very difficult.
Were you the caregiver?
Between myself, my brother, and my other brother, we were able to, basically, she wanted to come home. She was in a nursing home. And we were able to get her home, and she passed away like 6 hours after she came home.
Wow. I'm so sorry for your loss, Paul. That's a lot.
102 years old.
Holy mackerel! Wow.
So she had a great life, but the point is, it was very, very difficult. The time commitments that you have are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Because basically you're taking care of an infant.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah. You have to feed, clothe, change,
yes.
take care of them. It is not easy work.
And even if they're in a nursing home, the time commitment, again, was still phenomenal.
Yeah,
So-
it really is. And that's why we try our best to always work with the VA to get that additional HHA
Yes.
support. We're able to put in some hours ourselves through MJHS.
Yeah.
But speaking of other options, veteran nursing homes, this is another takeaway that we had from that program we did this year, is most veterans aren't aware that they're eligible. It's free if you're 70% service connected or
Yeah.
higher, but if you're not, even if you're 0% and you're honorably discharged, you are still eligible for care at a veteran nursing home.
Is that the state ones or?
Yes, the state ones.
Okay.
And you would have to pay a fee, but it is so competitive and
Yes.
way cheaper than it would be at other options.
Yes.
And so that's something that we were really happy to shed some
I believe
light on.
the closest one is in Long Island, is it not?
Yeah, Stony Brook University.
Stony Brook.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful
The reason
facility.
I'm aware of that is we had one of our Korean War veterans who had, over the course of his life, 12 strokes
Wow.
and was totally tied up in the nursing home here, couldn't come home. They just could not care for him at home. And we were trying to move him to the state nursing home, simply because of the cost on the family. The
Wow.
cost was phenomenal. They did not have the money. They were borrowing money on their credit cards to keep him in the nursing home. So very difficult situation, but it's important, again, to the audience that they know that these options are there.
Yes, sir.
And yes, there was some pushback from the family because, well, it's Stony Brook, so I've got to drive to Stony Brook to visit. Yeah, but you've got to be able to survive too.
Yeah.
Survival of the people remaining is still important. So
Absolutely.
very
And
difficult situations.
It really is difficult. And one of the benefits about a state-run veteran nursing homes is a camaraderie
Yep.
is there. And the facility at Stony Brook actually has a program that we are able to use too through virtual reality.
Okay.
Which is really an amazing program. The technology is very helpful for reducing pain and also helping with dementia patients for having better recall and memory. And it's also a moment, we shared the virtual reality with a family not too long ago, and even though the patient had dementia and was at end of life, they took a trip on a dog sled tour in Alaska, and while the veterans got the headset on and enjoying and looking around and seeing the dog sleds, there's a tablet that we can see what they're seeing on at the same time, and his wife was narrating a trip that they had taken together, and it was just incredible to share that moment with the families. And we do veteran recognition ceremonies, and it astounds me that there's so many families we've encountered that the family has no knowledge about their military service, and we as veterans know why. It's traumatic.
Well, we don't talk about it.
We don't, and MJHS prides itself on providing trauma-informed care.
Yep.
And that really helps with the veteran-centric culture because it doesn't matter where you served. We look at veterans the same way, whether it's a U.S. military service or a foreign branch, even the Brits.
Oh, even the Brits.
Even the Brits.
I served with them in Iraq, so I'm
Yeah.
very aware of their issues.
Yes,
they
we
were
had
very
the huge
interesting.
cavalry. Yep, we had some liberty with some British sailors as well, and the Canadians were there, and there was the whole international commitment to that war.
Interestingly enough, what I always thought was interesting when I was there was that the rest of the world didn't seem to realize that there were almost 40 other partners there with us in Iraq.
That's right.
So
That's right.
quite a few allies were there. So
Yeah.
Very interesting stuff.
Speaking of allies, can I just add one more thing?
Sure.
We are part of the HVP program through We Honor Veterans, and that's Hospice Veteran Providers.
Okay.
And we are soon going to have another meeting. We're going to organize it from MJHS and work with other providers who work with veterans to get together, share resources, share information, and work together just to make sure that all the information that is needed is out there and we can discuss gaps. And we are certainly going to invite people who represent veterans throughout the city. So hopefully at some point in the future I'll have an opportunity to come back and
Talk
share
about that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'd really like to
Sounds
do that
good.
sometime.
Okay. Well, the show is called In Honor Of, and I again want to thank Mr. Ashton Stewart for coming and talking to us about hospice care, end-of-life concerns. These are very important topics. We've talked about some issues that some of us have found in our own lives and other veterans have found. Hopefully you'll be able to come back and tell us some more about the new program that's coming up in the near future.
I'd love
Thank
that.
you very much for coming.
Thank you, Paul.
The show is in honor of. It's a show for veterans, about veterans, how to help veterans and their families